Good afternoon. Welcome to Sewing with Monty. Today we are going to go over making a basic pull-on pant. I've shortened my pattern into a short, and this will be an elastic cased waistband with the drawstring and two side pockets. It's a very simple pattern, but a very functional pattern. It can be versatile from PJs to casual shorts to beach attire. So what we're going to do today, there's three pieces here. There's a front pant, a back pant, and a pocket. And I'm going to just give you some tips about how to lay out and cut out the pattern itself. That's how we're going to get started. And then we'll move into other segments like starting the assembly of the pant. So as you can tell, I have a paper pattern here. Now this is marker paper that's used in the industry. It's a little thicker than your tissue paper that you get in a store-bought pattern. But it can still be treated basically the same way. The first part of laying out your pattern is you want to measure, make sure your selvages are together, like such. And then you want to measure from the fold or the selvage and make sure your grain line is straight. Now something else you want to pay attention to when you're laying out fabric, majority of fabric today that is printed comes with a one-way design. Even if you don't think it's there or it's not very apparent, it's there. And you've got to be careful so that you don't turn one of your pattern pieces upside down like such. Even though it might fit better, it could look funny when you get the shorts completely made. So you've got to be careful with that. I like this little tip here. If you notice the writing on here, I go in the direction of the writing as this going to be the top as it's going up. Usually that's the case, but you still want to double check your print just in case it looks a little better the other way. Now the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here to the fold, and I'm going to start with this front piece. And I'm going to lay it out. I'm going to measure over from the grain line to the fold, and I've got 14¼ inches, so I'm going to put a pin right in the grain line. That's where I'm going to pin it first. And then I'm going to come up here and I'm going to make sure that this is 14¼ Now this one's a little off, so I'm going to pivot it over so it's 14¼ This would matter, especially if there's a subtle stripe or a pattern in your design that would cause it to look like it's tilting. Okay, so we have those pins in. Now, all the other parts of this pattern, I'm going to start with the corners. And I'm going to put my pins in diagonally in the corners like such. Keep them away from the edge. I don't want to run them linear, real close to the edge like this, because what it does is it causes a ripple in my pattern and it can distort my cut. So I'm going to work out from the grain line and do all the corners first. So grain line, corners, and then any other sections that you feel like you want to put a pin in. Just like that, all the way through. Looks like I cut the corner off the pattern. Now I'm going to come back and put pins perpendicular to the edges in between here wherever I feel like I need it. And this would happen with all the pieces. The pocket would be the same way. I'm take the grain line and I'm going to measure over. So I'm 5 1/8 right here. So I'm going to put a pin right here. And then I'm going to come up here and make sure I'm 5 1/8 again. It's a little bit more time consuming, but the quality of your garment is going to look so much better if you pay attention to the grain line and get it perpendicular or parallel to your fold. So it's worth it. It's worth it to do such. Again, all the corners get pinned, and this one I really don't need anything in the long field line. I can just go ahead and do that. Now the last piece, I'll pin it down. Same thing. Notice everything's traveling one way. And I'm going to come over from my fold and I'm going to just bump it back so I'm a full 14 inches there. I'm going to put one pin down here, like such. And I'm going to come up to the top and do the same thing. I want to be 14 inches away, spot on. Now, what I have over here on the side are weights. This is in case your pattern's just really crumpled or you just need a little extra weight on your fabric because it's a little slippery. So you can weight it down. If you don't have these are garment standard weights. You can use large washers from Home Depot or Lowe's or your hardware store and just lay them on top. They work really well as well. Okay, so back to the corners. I'm going to do all the corners on the back piece. And notice I just take my finger and I just sort of push up on the fabric and the paper a little bit to get the pin in there. Just give it a little push. And then in the middle, you get all of these sections, the longer parts. If it doesn't want to go in one way, try another. It'll go. This takes a little moment. Okay, so now we have it all pinned down. Now, we're going to cut it out. Remember when you're cutting out, you want a good pair of shears. Try not to use too small of a scissor. You really need something that's got a substantial blade on it so that the pattern doesn't schism away from the pattern, or the fabric doesn't schism away from the pattern. When you cut, keep the blade on the table. Don't lift your fabric up and try to cut like this. You're going to distort it. Just keep that bottom blade running right along the table's edge. And as you cut out, you may have to move your fabric around. If you have to, move it around. It's okay. It's pinned down securely. Slide it so that you get a comfortable cut. You don't want to be cutting like this and get in an awkward position. Now, before I remove this pocket, you see how there's a mark there circled in red? That's a punch hole, and it's important. That's my pocket opening. So what I'm going to do, and I'll do this here and I'll do it on the front pan as well. See how I put pins in there, back to back? So I would do this. I'll take this out of here, all the pins, and I'm going to separate it by taking the pattern loose. And when I separate the fabric, the pins will go into the hole. See? Now I have those 2 dots marked with my pins. So all I have to do now is take my chalk or my marker and mark my dots. So I'm going to use chalk, and I'm just going to put a little yellow dot right there and right there, right where the pin is. See? And now it's marked. So if you put your pins in like that and you pull the fabric apart, the pin will temporarily mark it till you can get your real mark in there. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and finish cutting this out, and then we'll move on to part 2 and start assembling the pan. Thank you.